Hey, what's up everybody? It is Uncle Mad here. Big news in the world of professional wrestling. I am recording this on Monday, April 3rd. I was originally going to do this kind of recap version of Wrestlemania right after the show ended, but last night, once I watched the press conference and everything, I was kind of tired. Didn't really feel like sitting up for another stretch and recording, and I also kind of wanted to sleep on my thoughts on the finale of the main event, and also wait and see if we got any more developments in the big WWE sale breaking news that was coming out yesterday, and we in fact did bright and early this morning, so we'll get into that. But before we get into the sale news and recapping WrestleMania Night 2, wanted to shout out, I'm going to put this today's video up also as a podcast form. I actually have a podcast that you can find on all major podcast platforms. It's the Uncle Mad Podcast. I think I've only ever put up like 2 episodes because I haven't had a whole lot of videos that seem like they would double as a podcast, but this one is probably going to be one that fits the description. So if you'd rather listen to this while you're like cutting the yard or working out or sitting at your desk or ignoring your teacher if you're a school student, you can go to Spotify, Apple, any of the major podcast platforms and look for the Uncle Mad Podcast and find this in audio form and listen to it that way. So I might even put a link in the description down below for you to be able to find that if you want to do that. But little new option that's on the table for you there, should you so choose. And if you're actually listening to this in the audio form, I normally do YouTube videos, so go over to YouTube, look me up on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel there. So I'm speaking to both audiences, of which there are probably not many people, but we'll see what happens. But let's get right into it. The big news yesterday that has kind of even dwarfed WrestleMania Night 2 is that CNBC reported yesterday that WWE was on the verge of finalizing a sale to Endeavor, the parent company and owners of UFC. Now, they were one of the companies that was always kind of listed as being a potential buyer, but there was reports at one point in time, I believe their owner or chief, whatever his title is, Ari Emanuel, even said they weren't going to do anything that would negatively impact the overall company, which led people to believe they were maybe not going to be in the mix to buy WWE. But yesterday it broke that they were the ones who were coming in. Everything that was pretty much in the CNBC report has now come out and been confirmed, with Endeavor officially announcing the transaction with Vince McMahon and Ari Emanuel. They've been doing the rounds on some of the business shows today talking about it. I believe the latest quote I just saw that was kind of troubling was Vince McMahon said he was fully prepared to walk away, but Ari Emanuel would not let him. Don't know if that's such a good thing. If you don't know the backstory of this whole thing, so last summer, Vince McMahon stepped away from WWE, retired, quote unquote, due to revelations that he had paid some hush money for some potential outside of marital affairs is the best way to describe them. I mean, who knows what exactly the nature of those relationships was, but what got him in trouble wasn't necessarily the relationships. It was that there was potentially company money that was utilized in the payoffs that were given to these women, and that there was also potentially people who got promotions based on their relationships with Vince McMahon, which the SEC would have a problem with. So he basically stepped away to protect the company on a financial state, not like we don't want people to think the owner of our company is a deviant or something like that, which he's pretty much well known to be. So he stepped away for those reasons. And then late last year, it seemed like, I guess he felt the heat had cooled off, that nothing was going to come of it, that enough had been done to protect the company and settle those issues, that he could come back. Because when he stepped down, when he retired, the one thing he never did was give up his voting shares, give up his majority stakeholder in the company. So he kind of always had the power, always had the control to bring himself back. He came back, he kicked a couple people off the board of directors, reinstated himself as chairman of the board, brought back some of his trusted associates to the board, and essentially kind of more or less came back. Now, he hasn't reassumed his full control of the company. Nick Khan is still running the operations of the company. Triple H is still running the creative, but there's definitely signs, if you watch the product, that Vince McMahon has been passing off some ideas to Triple H that Triple H has been utilizing, and you just gotta have to feel he's not just sitting in his office just hanging around doing nothing. He prefaced his return by saying he was coming back to help facilitate the sale of the company, and so that certainly happened. But now one of the key elements in this sale to Endeavor is that he's sticking around as the executive chairman of the new company that's being formed, because what Endeavor has announced is going to happen is they're going to buy WWE and merge it with UFC under one banner, one parent company. Like, they'll still be their own entities. UFC will still be UFC, WWE will still be WWE, but they will be operated by one joint company that will trade on the stock market as TKO. They haven't announced what the official name of the company is going to be, but that's going to be their stock handle. That's not the right word. Stock. Oh, I've got the article pulled up. I'll just look at it right here. Stock symbol, ticker symbol will be TKO for the company. This is just an announcement that this is what's happening. They filed, their plans with the SEC. So once regulators approve everything, this could all go pretty quickly. But then this article I'm reading here, it says it could take the rest of the year just because there's so many hurdles and stuff to go through with a sale and a merger of this magnitude. But pretty crazy story coming out here today. It's definitely a little bit odd, the idea that Vince McMahon came back to facilitate the sale, but that for whatever reason, according to him, Ari Emanuel really wanted him to stick around as a part of the new company. Let me read a little bit of this just to give you the confirmed of what's going to happen. The article pulled up right here, so we will just go through it and give you all the fine details of what is actually happening here, if I can get anything to work correctly. Yeah, it's pretty crazy because it seemed like Endeavor was somewhat out of the race. Like I mentioned, like they had stated they weren't going to do anything that would hurt the company. Oh, here's an interesting new quote from the Vince McMahon interview. Vince says to CNBC yes and no when asked if he's going to be involved in the creative side. Said he'll be involved on a higher level but not in the weeds. Barf. That is very bad news, which we already kind of suspected he was back involved in creative, but not, like I said, not 100% leading it, but any involvement with him in creative is not great. I do think, I don't know this officially, but I suspect with the sale, what I just mentioned, his controlling shares, him controlling voting shares, which allowed him to put himself back in control. I think that probably goes away with the Endeavor deal, because Endeavor will now be the lead owner, the majority shareholder. The way they are going to split this new company, it's going to be 51% owned by Endeavor and 49% of it will be WWE stockholders owning it. So I don't know. I haven't seen anything in terms of Vince McMahon's voting shares, if that's going to change, but I would think that would change. I would think he would no longer really have the full control he kind of still had even when he stepped down. So if they decide after a few months they do want to push him out, they do want to get rid of him, like was this just a sweeten the pot deal, like, hey Vince, if you sell to us, we'll keep you around type thing, and after a few months they can get rid of him? That I don't know. So here's the official release from Endeavor Group Holdings and World Wrestling Entertainment today announced they have signed a definitive agreement to form a new publicly listed company consisting of two iconic complementary global sports and entertainment brands, UFC and WWE. Upon close, Endeavor will hold 51% controlling interest in the new company, and existing WWE shareholders, which I am one of them, will hold 49% interest in the new company. Together, the UFC, WWE Global Reach, that is just kind of like popping up how they have their sales, blah, blah, blah. There's some quotes from the people. Okay, so the new company will be led by Ari Emanuel as Chief Executive Officer, who will also continue in his role as Chief Executive Officer of Endeavor. Vince McMahon will be the Executive Chairman of the Board. Mark Shapiro will be President and Chief Operating Officer of both Endeavor and the new company. Dana White will continue in his role as president of USC, and Nick Khan will serve as president of WWE. The board of directors will consist of 11 members who will be appointed at a later date, 6 of whom will be appointed by Endeavor, 5 by WWE. So once again, that points in the direction that Endeavor is now obviously the controlling part of this. So hopefully that means if they feel that it's time to put McMahon out to pasture, they will be able to do that at some point in time. So the transaction has UFC valued at $12.1 billion, which is crazy because I believe Endeavor bought it for $4 billion just a few years ago. So what a growth there. and WWE at $9.3 billion. That's crazy. Which means the overall value of both companies combining comes into about $21 billion. I said this on Twitter, but I need somebody to tell me when the right time is to sell the WWE stock, because it's dropped now. I guess it's dropped because the sale is just kind of announced. Maybe there's going to be like a sell-off. People sell. I don't know exactly how the stock market works. So I believe at some point in time there's going to be a big boost to the stock because of this whole deal. I could be wrong about that. Obviously, it's down right now, but somebody who knows what's going on with this, who knows stuff better than me, tell me when it's time to sell WWE stock, because I also think they're going to get another boost in 2024 when the new TV rights deals go through, as long as those TV rights deals go up. So maybe waiting until 2024 post TV rights deals, or right before the TV rights deals when they're still kind of not sure how much they're going to go for, might be the right time. I don't know. Not a stock expert. Basically bought WWE stock just to have it for fun. But now it could be worth something, so maybe I sell it. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. There's no real mention of Triple H. I assume just because he's head of creative, he's not really a business executive in the company. He's not directly involved in any of the restructuring that comes with the sale, but I assume he would stay in control unless something about this situation makes him decide to step away himself, kind of like what his wife Stephanie did when Vince McMahon first came back to the company. I think Endeavor's probably, other than maybe NBC Universal, the best possible candidate to buy WWE, because they've, like I said, since they bought UFC, they've just pushed UFC through the roof and turned it into, like, you know, like I said, they have it at a valuation of $12 billion when they bought it for $4 billion. That's insane growth. So Endeavor is a good parent company, a good business to have to own WWE. But the key question here is going to be, is the positive build we've got in creative under Triple H's leadership going to continue? Or is Vince McMahon being allowed to stick around going to lead to him getting his fingers and his hands more in the mud than it has been recently? Because you can definitely see from stuff that's been going on Raws and SmackDowns and even WrestleMania that Vince was definitely kind of in Triple H's ear a little bit more over the last couple months. But how much more that continues to shift will be the big question coming out of this. But a lot still to happen. Like they said, they expect to have it. Says here the transaction is expected to close in the second half of 2023. So obviously any kind of big business deal like this, even though you made the agreement, there's all kinds of hoops and hurdles to leap through to finalize it. So a lot to go there on that. But that is the big news of the day. And the one thing I mentioned, like, you know, the TV rights deals coming up and how that could be another boost to the stock coming up in 2024. The weird thing about this, and I kind of talked about it the other day when somebody in the live chat was asking about the sale. The weird thing about NBC Universal not going into this is they, for all intents and purposes, were the one that made the most sense from their point of view to want to buy WWE, because they're spending billions of dollars on the Peacock deal, the deal for Raw. If they were to go and try to get SmackDown back, they're spending billions of dollars and then keep having to spend more to keep renewing those TV deals over and over again. Whereas if they just bought WWE, they own the property. They can, you know, never have to pay the TV rights deals again. They could put WWE on any of their platforms they want. If they want to put a show on NBC, they can do that. If they want to put a show on USA, they can do that. If they want to put stuff on Peacock, they can do that. If they wanted to put stuff on Bravo, they could do that. And the other thing that was interesting to me is, like, you know, Universal is really building up their theme park business. They're really trying to go head to head with Disney in the theme park world in a way they really, you know, they've always pushed, but they, like, with the addition of their new theme park, Epic Universe, with some of the growth and expansion they're doing at the existing parks, especially at a time where Disney's doing next to nothing in terms of expansion and growth, they're going for it. So I thought in that regard, that was another area where to add a global IP like WWE to your catalog of potential things you can utilize in the theme parks, you know, a freaking Hulk Hogan roller coaster, a Stone Cold Steve Austin drop ride, a Undertaker dark ride, those things that you could integrate into your parks if you owned and fully controlled the IP. But for whatever reason, it seemed very early on in the game, NBC Universal was just not a part of it, not going for it. But that kind of makes me curious and wonder why. Like, there's a big expectation that the rights fees are going to jump up in 2024, but if one of their main long-term partners in Comcast Universal wasn't interested in bidding on them to own them outright, are they going to be interested in bidding to continue the partnership in TV? like this Peacock deal, they had to have been losing just tons of money on it because they're spending so much on it and Peacock just doesn't make money. Is that a deal they're going to renew? I don't know. And the TV deal, USA Network is not what it once was. Are they going to continue to try to, and really Monday Night Raw is the only thing keeping it afloat in terms of ratings. The burn notice days are long gone. Is NBC looking to maybe restructure their entire television scenario and WWE not be a part of that? And if USA's not in the mix for WWE, who does that leave? Obviously, we know the Turner networks are invested in wrestling right now with AEW, but if Turner has the chance to go and get WWE instead of AEW, do they do that? It's going to be very interesting. Obviously, Endeavor is a good company for WWE to be with in terms of that because they secured a huge mega deal for UFC with ESPN that just, guaranteed them all the money they could possibly need. So somebody's going to get some money out of this. Someone is going to benefit hugely, and somebody's going to pay a lot of money to get WWE programming. But I'm very curious if it's going to be Universal because it's something's in the water for them to have not been interested in purchasing the company. Definitely something to monitor there. That's, kind of the main news. Vince McMahon's talking right now, so there'll be more news and more tidbits coming out. I'm not going to follow that directly live, but I just wanted to cover that because that's by far the biggest news in wrestling, and probably since WWE bought WCW, it's probably the biggest news we've seen since then. I can't think of anything else that could possibly be bigger. I mean, the Chris Benoit situation was a big news story, but I mean, in terms of just in the ring, the wrestling business itself, this is huge. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll certainly, I'll certainly discuss it more as more news and more developments come out with that. But let's get into WrestleMania Night 2. Right out of the gates, it was not as good as Night 1, but when you kind of looked at the card, you could kind of see that and kind of expecting that. Just like on paper, the matches didn't seem like they would have the same quality that the Night 1 matches were going to have, but there was a lot of stuff that would still be entertaining and still be cool about it, and that's kind of how it went. It was entertaining, it was fun. There's a couple things that went wrong on Night 2 that we'll get into as we go, and then obviously the big sort of question mark, the big sort of what are we doing here type thing is the ending of the main event. We'll get to that and we'll go through everything there. But let's start off right out of the gates. Match number 1, Brock Lesnar versus Omos. This is kind of exactly what it should have been, what you would expect it to be, just two big hosses kind of beating on each other. It was funny, Brock Lesnar mentioned in an interview this week that he wanted to do this match because it was one of the few situations where they could do a David and Goliath match where he was the David in the match, which made a lot of sense. Short match, only about 5 minutes. Almost got in some offense early on, kind of beat him down a little bit. They were working over Brock Lesnar's back to sell that he would have trouble lifting almost with the bad back. He fired back up, got a couple German suplexes, went for an F5, couldn't get it, almost got a little bit more offense in, and then Brock Lesnar finally did hit the F5 to win the match. 1.5, 2 stars, something like that probably at best, because, we didn't get what I wanted. I wanted the match to completely fall apart and for Brock Lesnar to get frustrated and start just like potatoing and beating on almost, but everything went the way it was supposed to go, and so, which was fine. It was by the numbers, 2 big men in a short match type match. Interesting Lesnar going over, like I mentioned in the preview, I kind of thought this would be a spot to maybe put Omos over to set him up as a contender for whoever came out of WrestleMania as the world champion, because that's kind of been a pattern for WWE over the years, is to, especially if there's a new champion, give them a big monster they have to defeat to prove themselves and show that they're, a defining champion. Like you go back to when Daniel Bryan won the world title at WrestleMania 30, they immediately set up his first feud to be with Kane. He had to beat a monster to prove that he was definitively the world champion. But almost, with what they did in the main event, I don't think they necessarily needed to set up Omos as a championship contender, because I don't think anybody wants to see Omos versus Roman Reigns headlining a premier live event. So in that regard, it makes sense for Lesnar to win there, but also don't want to see Lesnar versus Reigns for the 848th time. So don't know where Lesnar goes from here. I would imagine, he'll be out for a while. He might be on the Saudi show coming up. They might want him for the London show in England, but I don't know. It seems like one of those times where it's going to be a Lesnar break coming up after this one, but who knows. Next up, we had the Women's WrestleMania Showcase Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. And this match it wasn't bad, but there was just nothing to it. There was nothing that really grabbed you and caught you. Chelsea Green had a dive to the outside, which was kind of like the highlight. It's hard, it's not really fair to these ladies to compare it to the men's one, because the men had a cheat code of Ricochet being in that match, where Ricochet was going to do 100 million things that were going to be awesome. So it's not fair, but at the same time, it just was not anywhere close to the level of that match. Ultimately, Rousey and Shayna Baszler won. Rousey got the win with the armbar. I mentioned in the preview I thought they would win, but I wasn't sure because Rousey's got a broken arm, so I didn't know if she would need to take time off after WrestleMania, because it seemed like whoever won this would be set up for a women's tag team title match. So I guess Rousey's just, maybe it's one of those just like broken arms where it's not like, broken, it's just like a crack or a little fracture that, if she protects it while she's in the ring, can heal and she can keep working. I don't know. We'll see. Same thing as the first one, 1.5, 2 stars at best. Next one. This one might have been second, third best match of the weekend. Just brutal, big monsters beating the crap out of each other. Great, several false finishes. Gunther, the Intercontinental Champion, defending against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre in a triple threat match. I was really rooting for Sheamus in this one. My Nashville guy, big Nashville SC supporter Sheamus. The storyline was built in there where this is the last title he needs to complete the full set of WWE championships. To do it at WrestleMania was his dream. Big, Sheamus dream there. They really teased you, made you think he was going to do it a couple times. A couple great near falls that made you think Drew McIntyre was going to win the IC title. In the end, Gunther came in, House of Fire, powerbombed both McIntyre and Sheamus. Gets the pinfall to win and retain the Intercontinental title. And as much as sentimentally I wanted Sheamus to win this match, it probably is the better decision to go forward with Gunther still as the IC champion. He's on, pushing for one of the, and this is going to sound a bit hypocritical when I criticize what happened in the main event, but he's on historically long run as IC champion, and I think he needs that because this is really helping him get elevated. He's always been awesome, but this long run as IC champion, it's not only elevating him, but it's re-elevating the Intercontinental title to a level it hasn't been in years. And Gunther is knocking on the door, pushing his way up the card to where he could be a guy that you're setting up to be a challenger for whoever the world champion. Well, we know who the world champion is at this point, but Gunther could be one of the guys that's going to be lined up for a big world title match. They've got a big Money in the Bank show in London coming up with the European Gunther challenging over there. Makes sense. We already saw one European hero lose in Europe, so I don't know that we need to do that again after Drew McIntyre lost at Clash in the Castle, but great match, hard-hitting, brutal. Don't think it was as good as the Gunther-Sheamus match back at Clash at the Castle, but it was really good. Probably, like I said, second, maybe third best match on all of WrestleMania for the weekend. Next up, Bianca Belair defends the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka. Really good match, really fun match. Once again, hard and kind of unfair to compare it to the Charlotte Rhea Ripley match because these two women just would never be able to do the style of match and the type of match that Rhea and Charlotte did, so it's kind of unfair to compare, but just never was anywhere close to that match, which probably was the best match of WrestleMania weekend. But this was a really good match. Both ladies worked really hard. Some really good stuff in there. The finish was really, really well worked. With it was Bianca Belair was stuck in an armbar. Looked like she might have to tap, but she ultimately, one of her really cool things she does, she's super strong, so she powered up into the KOD from the ground, hit it on Asuka, 1, 2, 3. Bianca Belair wins, and much like Gunther, I think it made more sense for her to keep rolling on as champion because it's really building her up. It's really building that title up. And she's been awesome as champion, so there's not necessarily any reason to take it off of her at this point. And Asuka's great. Asuka's awesome. She's one of the best in-ring performers they have, but I don't necessarily know that she does much for them as a champion. She can come in, work a program with a champion, work a program with anybody, and it's going to be awesome, but does she need the championship? Does it do anything for the championship to be with her? Probably not, but it does kind of suck for her. This is twice now she's gotten a big WrestleMania title match hyped up, looking like she might be the one to dethrone a strong champion, and she loses again. So that kind of sucks for her. I would have liked to see her get the big moment in that regard, but it does probably make more sense in the long run to keep it on Bianca Belair, which once again, I'm advocating for long-running champions to keep their champions now, but we're going to go in a different direction here in just a minute. So next up, the first kind of goof up, mess up of the show We get the same thing we got on night one. Snoop Dogg and The Miz are in the ring, just talking, blabbering, and Miz announces the attendance, and then Snoop Dogg says, hey, don't you want another match? And Miz is like, no, I don't want another match. And Snoop Dogg's like, oh, well, you're getting another match. Shane McMahon makes his grand return after being gone for over a year. Comes down to the ring. He's going to be Miz's opponent in this impromptu match. Same thing as Pat McAfee the night before, except this time, Shane McMahon goes for a leapfrog, tears his quad. And it was hilarious. Like, you got to find the video clip of this, because Michael Cole on the announcer says when Shane McMahon leaps, he goes, Shane McMahon still got it. And then he lands, leg gives out, he goes down in a heap, and you hear Corey Graves just go, welp. He tried to stand back up, immediately went back down. Shades of his father. It's so crazy. 20 years ago, almost. No, 20? No. What? WrestleMania 20, Royal Rumble in the build-up to WrestleMania 21. Finish was John Cena, Batista, both go over, both hit the ground at the same time. They don't know who wins the Royal Rumble. Vince McMahon storms out, furious about it and wanting to make a decision. He goes to jump in the ring, and as soon as he jumps in the ring, he tears both his quads. And then he just has to sit on the ground in the ring and yell and scream and do whatever he was supposed to do from a sitting position because he tore both his quads. Now here we are, WrestleMania 39. Shane follows in his father's footsteps, tears his quad in the middle of the ring, and just ruins the whole segment. Now, I don't know if anybody gave him the instructions. I don't know if he just ran with it himself. I don't know if The Miz called it in the ring. I don't know if somebody at ringside shouted something out. But Snoop Dogg, on the fly, knowing Shane McMahon's hurt, knowing he can't continue, it seemed like Shane indicated that to Miz, and maybe Miz passed that off to Snoop Dogg. But either way, what Snoop Dogg did was incredible, and one of the highlights of WrestleMania weekend. He punches The Miz once. Miz jumps up. He punches him again. And then out of nowhere, Snoop Dogg gives The Miz the people's elbow and pins The Miz to win the new impromptu match. Great change on the fly. You know, it was probably more entertaining than what would have happened between Shane and Vince, or Shane and Miz had Shane not got hurt. So if that was all Snoop Dogg, kudos to him. If that was any of The Miz, kudos to him. If somebody at ringside was pulling the strings on that really quickly, kudos to them, because that could have been a huge disaster on, just in the middle of a WrestleMania moment that got turned into something probably better than what the original plan was anyway. So good job to everybody involved in that, saving that segment. Next we had Edge, Finn Balor, Hell in a Cell. This one was kind of a disappointment, and I don't necessarily think it was the guy's fault, because early on in the match, Edge hits Finn Balor with a ladder. It busts Finn open. Apparently it was pretty bad, but they immediately cut away. They immediately had medical personnel come into the cell to stitch it up. They would never show it, Finn Balor, so Edge spends like 5 minutes having to walk around the ring, stalling, killing time. He's pulling out all the extra weapons and stuff that they're eventually going to use. I thought this maybe was a work to set up, like, the cage door got open so the medical personnel could come in, which would allow the rest of Judgment Day to come in. But it wasn't. This was for real. They were, just trying to, I think they stapled Finn Balor's head up in the ring, which was weird because, like, he had all the demon face paint on, so I don't know how bad it could have been that they felt they needed to do it, because I don't even know if you could have seen him bleeding because of all his face paint and stuff like that. But caused a weird 5-minute delay in the match, which kind of pulled all the momentum, all the steam out of the match. They kind of got it going again, but then it felt like they were rushing to catch back up, and it just never fully caught the heat that they would have had. And I don't know if it ever would have gotten up to that point, because at this point I think the crowd had just been so up and down and so through so much stuff, and they were just probably also really ready for that main event of Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, that I don't know that there was much that Edge and Finn Balor could have done in this match to really get it up. But I'd go 2.5, 3 stars. They worked hard. They tried hard. And once again, we have Edge winning the match over the Demon Finn Balor. Once again, I was talking about this in the preview. I can't remember if they didn't make a big deal out of it, so I assume we have seen the Demon lose previously. So I couldn't remember if he was undefeated as the Demon or not still, but I assume he must have lost previously, because they didn't make a big deal out of the fact that Edge beat him as the Demon. And once again, this was another one where I would have gone with Balor as the win, because Judgment Day's been one of the hottest acts in the company. They're on the rise. You could have really set Finn Balor up here to be one of your top guys, have him set up to be a contender for the World Championship. And unlike almost, however you pronounce it, Balor would have been set up well to challenge either one of the guys coming out of the main event. Balor versus Cody Rhodes would have been awesome. Balor versus, Roman Reigns would have been awesome. Like the Judgment Day versus the Bloodline, the two hottest factions in the company having a big feud. And you can still go that way because a lot of times, like, WWE doesn't really, you know, put a lot of stock into who wins and loses matches the way they would have, 10, 15 years ago. For all we know, Balor could lose this match and it was just to finish off the thing with Edge. That way he doesn't have to feud with Edge anymore. And tomorrow night, we're going to have the Judgment Day attack the Bloodline to set up that next thing, and they'll just go with them as contenders anyway. They can do that. They do that kind of stuff all the time, but I think it would have been a lot better to have Demon Finn Balor win, strengthening him to move into potential top of the card programs. But he didn't. 2.5, 3-star match, like I said. Solid, but overall kind of disappointing because, you would have thought those two guys, Hell in a Cell, could have done so much more, but they kind of got derailed by the early stoppage, so it was what it was. And now the main event, the featured match, the biggest match in WrestleMania, Roman Reigns, 900 plus days as undisputed Universal Champion, putting the title on the line against the prodigal son, returned to WWE, Cody Rhodes, looking to finish the story, looking to do what his family had never been able to do, have a Rhodes member win the top prize in all of sports entertainment, dethrone the Roman Empire, all those little cliched words and phrases. Vintage Dusty Rhodes punches. We get a bionic elbow. Yep, we are. Bam! Drop down, the gold dust punch. This is it. Crossroads. You got it. Roll through. He's going for another one. Oh, he's rolling through. We're going for 3. Heyman's up on the apron, though. Oh, no. Solo Sikoa's back. Oh, Samoan Spike by Solo Sikoa. No. 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 Spear from Roman Reigns. Wow. 1, 2, 3. Cody loses. Oh, my God. Wow. Wow. I mean, you'd think the ref could see that now Solo Sikoa's back out there. He's not supposed to be out there. He should restart the match because he threw that guy out and he's clearly back out there. He's like not even hiding anymore. He's right there. Wow. Wow. I thought there was a chance this was happening because we've had nothing but heel or nothing but babyface victories across WrestleMania. Every babyface won every single match up to this point. So I thought it was making me start to think there was a chance that we were not getting the big babyface win to end the show. Wow. 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 Great match, a lot of great back and forth, a lot of great near falls, typical WWE big match where you've got a spear, kick out, crossroads, kick out, pedigree, kick out, a little bit of outside interference, Solo Sikoa gets tossed, Usos run in while after a ref bump, and then KO and Sammy run them off. Get down late, we've got Cody firing up, he hits a crossroads, he holds on, picks Roman back up, hits a second. Holds on, picks back up, hits a third. Holds on, picks back up, going for a fourth. Paul Heyman takes the referee. He's got him distracted. Solo Sikoa's back out. Samoan Spike on Cody. Roman hits the spear. 1, 2, 3. Roman Reigns wins, retains the title. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare's WrestleMania dream, dies. Not the finish I would have booked. And I'll say why. I understand, they're really building Roman into being one of their all-time guys. They probably want him to get to 1,000 days as champion. They're doing everything they can to put him officially in the Pantheon with the Austin, Rock, Hogan, Cena, for better or worse category. That's their main goal is to get him to that level. And we saw, similar things, it's not too dissimilar from the way New Japan booked Okada over the years. There was a few times where Okada was on a very long title run, and it looked, the first kind of times that Kenny Omega started coming after Okada, and it looked like it would have made sense for Kenny to win the IWGP title from Okada because Kenny was on the rise, Kenny was the hot new star, but Okada beat him a few times before Kenny finally got the win, and it was because they knew in their long-term booking it would elevate Kenny more to have to overcome adversity, because they did the same thing with Okada and Tanahashi, but they were also wanting Okada to go on a really long, really dominant run with the championship to really establish him as their modern Inoki. And I think there's a similar thing going on with Roman Reigns, where they're really trying to establish him as the modern, you know, they want to be able to, when all is said and done, call him the best of all time. That's been the goal with him since day one. Since, you know, he even talks about in his promos that back in the Performance Center when he was first training, Dusty Rhodes was telling him they were going to make him the best of all time. That was an element that they used in this feud with Cody Rhodes. But I appreciate that as a goal. I appreciate the idea behind that. And, you know, the Bloodlines is over as anybody there is. Roman's as over as he's ever been. They're definitely getting that goal accomplished. But I talked about in my preview WrestleMania, I talked about in when I did the rankings of all the WrestleManias, the thing you remember about WrestleMania, the thing that makes WrestleMania special is the moments. And Cody winning the world title, finishing the story, getting the big win, being the guy to knock off Roman Reigns after having left the company, rebuilt himself, coming back stronger than ever, would have been an all-time WrestleMania moment. 80,000 people cheering him on in the SoFi Center. And I think instead what you did was you left this WrestleMania with a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about it, because everybody wanted, well, I can't say everybody, but I think, you know, going through social media, looking at the reaction of the fans in the crowd, I think the majority of people wanted to see Cody Rhodes win this match, get the big moment, finish the story. And he didn't. And the thing that makes it more frustrating to me is they had another opportunity for another big all-time legendary WWE moment, and it would have been having Sami Zayn beat Roman Reigns in Montreal at the Elimination Chamber show. And they didn't do that one. And I kind of was like, you know, defending them, like, they've always had the plan, the bigger moment is WrestleMania, and whatever they have planned for WrestleMania. Would it have been an awesome one-night special moment that we'll always remember with Sami Zayn? Yes. But whatever they had planned for WrestleMania, I was like, that's more long-term, that's the bigger deal, that's what they got to keep working towards. And I believed that was Cody Rhodes winning the world title, but apparently it was not. I've even read some reports that there was, you know, it was finalized over the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, there was never plans for Cody to actually win this match, which kind of makes sense because, you know, I think the original goal, the original plan, the original hope for this WrestleMania would have been for it to be Roman Reigns versus The Rock, but ultimately The Rock did not commit to coming back. And if that had been the match, then Roman Reigns was going to retain for sure in that match. He wasn't going to lose the world title to The Rock. So if you're just subbing in Cody Rhodes, once you don't have The Rock, and the plan was always for Roman Reigns to beat The Rock at this WrestleMania, you have a great opportunity with how hot and how over Cody was to have him win and be the new babyface, the new huge star of the company. But if the long-term plan going back to when maybe The Rock was going to be there was for Roman to win at this WrestleMania, I guess that, you know, just keeps their story going and doesn't change their plans. Triple H even said in the post-match press conference that, you know, the catchphrase, finish the story, can't apply to WWE because in WWE, the story always continues. He said this is, you know, Roman Reigns said they're in the third inning of the Bloodline story. They're not even close to it being done. Triple H said, you got to keep watching. The story continues. This is just, you know, one chapter in the story. And he made a really bad analogy at one point in time. He said, you know, when you're watching a movie, if what you want to see happen in the movie doesn't happen in the first 20 minutes, you don't just like turn it off and say, oh, this sucks. They didn't do what I wanted them to do. I'm not watching the rest of this. There's a difference between a movie, which is, you know, 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, and getting frustrated 20 minutes in, and a 900-day title reign not ending when it probably should have ended. So I think kind of a bad analogy on that one by Triple H. But, and I think, you know, they'll, in their mindset, they probably, you know, if Cody is somebody, if they're going to build him back up and he's eventually going to beat Roman at a later point, that might be their mindset, because that's the other problem with this is there's just nobody left for Roman Reigns. He even said it in his post-match press conference. He listed everybody that he's beaten, and you're like listening to that list and you're like, yeah, there's nobody left for him to, you know, unless they just start going back through him, for him to wrestle anymore. Like, he's beaten all the top guys in WWE, and beating Cody, there's nobody left. So unless there's like some huge mega surprises that are going to be debuting tonight on Monday Night Raw, which the Raw after WrestleMania is always the best Raw of the year with the most crazy stuff happening and big surprises. But like in terms of like free agents, potential people that could be showing up, I don't know who there is that could show up and be like a legit contender for Roman Reigns. Like Jay White is, very widely rumored to be on his way to WWE. Braun Breaker is rumored to be potentially coming up from NXT, but neither one of those guys seem like they're ready to slot in to be a immediate contender for Roman Reigns. I mentioned Gunther, but it feels like that one's still a little ways away. Like Gunther's still got to go through some more stuff and build some more stuff up before we get to them. But outside of that, there's really nobody for Roman Reigns to face, and there's really no, outside of Cody now that he lost, there's no natural person that you're looking at as who could be the one to finally dethrone Roman. And you could do the storyline, like I mentioned, the Okada Kenny storyline, the Okada Tanahashi storyline, where the babyface fails in their first attempt and has to build himself back up and come back stronger and go again. But I kind of worry with Cody that might be easier said than done, because one of the reasons Cody, I think, left AEW was early on he challenged Chris Jericho for the AEW World title with the stipulation if he didn't beat Jericho, he would never challenge for the AEW World title again. He lost. I think he did that because he wanted to focus on the business side of the company in his role as an executive. He didn't want to have the specter of him potentially being a world champion kind of lingering over it, which I think he probably, if he had it to do over again, I don't think he would have done that. Because I think, over time, he was pushed as this, borderline John Cena, white meat, babyface, superhero type guy. And when you're wanting that guy to win, when you're wanting that guy to succeed, that works. But with Cody, when he couldn't challenge for the AEW World title, I think the fans just got tired of his act. They just were like, well, this guy can't really do anything except, beat some of the younger guys because he's not going after the top guys anymore. So why are we for this guy? And so he had a little bit of the Cena thing toward the end of his time in AEW where he was trying to portray a babyface, but the crowd had turned on him and was trying to make him a heel. He said in some interviews this week that he was actually playing into it and was being a heel in AEW, but I don't know about that. But I think you might see that here now that he's failed all the momentum he had, the hot streak, the hotness, the babyface momentum that everybody wanted to see him win. Now that he's lost, I worry that you might see a similar kind of crowd souring on him type thing, because it was already risky because the crowd was so into Sami Zayn and wanted Sami Zayn to win it. It was already risky because, the Bloodline is one of those heel factions where the fans really actually do like them. They're not baby faces in storyline, but the fans are like them. So you are all along kind of risking. Cody was teetering on the edge of not being as over as a babyface as he should be. And you even could see it a little bit at the start of the match. There was a little bit of back and forth with boos and cheers for Cody and Roman in the match, So, but now that he's lost, now that his big moment didn't happen, I worry the fan base is going to give up on him and kind of turn on him the same way they did in AEW. And so, if the plan is to, rebuild him back up and come back to Cody and Roman at some point in time, I don't know, SummerSlam or next year's WrestleMania, I don't know that you're going to be able to do that, because much like with Sami Zayn in Montreal, I don't know that you're ever going to have him be as hot, him be as over as he was going into last night's match. So in that regard, I think they missed a huge opportunity, and I don't think that's going to come up again, and I don't know who else they have that can get to that point. Sami Zayn came out of nowhere, obviously, with his deal, so, it's entirely possible there's somebody on the roster right now that we're not even thinking about who's going to, catch fire with the storyline and get going. Dominic Mysterio's been good, but he's nowhere near ready to be a world championship contender. I'm just looking through the card right now and everybody that was on the card. Seth Rollins got a big win over Logan Paul, but you've done Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns before. Austin Theory, obviously he beat John Cena, but he's a heel, so unless the plan is to steer into the fact that the crowd likes the Bloodline and turn the Bloodline face, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Theory's not really ready to be a world title contender. It's bizarre. I really think they missed the boat on what would have been a huge moment. And I think the problem with that is, like I said, there's two big issues with you missed the boat on the moment. It's one thing, it happens. It's not the first time fans have thought WWE should go one way and they went a different way. But it's kind of the more kind of ripple effects of it. Because like I mentioned, you pass on this moment for Cody Rhodes, which in turn retroactively makes it look even worse that you passed on the moment for Sami Zayn, because it seemed at the time you're passing on the Sami Zayn moment because the big moment you want to build to is actually the Cody Rhodes moment. And it turned out you didn't want to do either one of them, so that's retroactively even more frustrating. And like I said, the other issue is there's nothing left for Roman Reigns to do. Like, unless he just starts rematching people that he's already beat, there's nothing left for him to do. And if he starts rematching people he's already beat, I don't think anybody wants or expects any of those people to be the one to beat him. So now you've got a guy on a long championship reign where you're just not caring about the matches he's going to be in. You're not interested in them because you don't expect anybody to beat him at this point anymore. And you don't want anybody to beat him anymore, because at this point in time, if it's not Cody, then just they should keep the belt on Roman Reigns because he's the best, most over guy they've got. And, nobody is, in a position to be the person that, in my eyes, should beat him. So, but that just kills every match he has going forward, because it's just like, if you don't think anybody's going to beat him, if you don't want anybody to beat him, where's the interest in those matches going forward? So, I think it was a mistake just because it puts them in a really tough spot. But, Triple H has seemingly been a lot better in terms of long-term planning, long-term booking than the previous regime. And maybe some of my disappointment here is fueled by years of being just, beat down and hurt by Vince McMahon booking, but I'm just not ready to accept that Triple H knows what he's doing and is not going to screw us over the way Vince did for so many years. But it's just hard to see what the path is, But like, Triple H said, it's just a piece of the story. It's just one chapter in the story, that there's more to come, that you have to keep watching. But, you could see the steps along the way in the build-up to this Cody Rhodes-Roman Reigns match, and you could see how the steps were going. And now that they've kept the belt on Roman, I don't see what the way forward is, and I don't see what... like I said, I can see matches they can make, but I don't see what's the big compelling match that keeps the high interest they've had, the high, momentum they've had going. It just feels like they swung and a miss on this one, because put the belt on Cody, you've got 100 new matches, 100 new opponents, and every match he has, there would be an interest level of could he lose, because with the Roman long streak now, I just don't think you're going to expect him to lose any matches anytime soon. But with Cody, he's got 100 new opponents he could face, and a ton of them would be ones you might think, oh, well, this guy could beat Cody, this guy could beat Cody, this guy could beat Cody. But you don't have that now. And I think they really missed the ball on that. Just one final thought. I do wonder, you can't help but not wonder, because if you look at the history of WWE, how they've treated people that got over in other companies or that got over outside of WWE, Vince, once again, this is a Vince thing. I don't know that Triple H has any doings with this, or this is his mindset, but also we are certainly seeing that Vince McMahon is somewhat getting more involved. Look at everybody who ever jumped over from WCW when the war was at their hottest. One of the first things they would do with them in WWE was put them down and show that they weren't as on high level as the top stars in WWE. Jericho, Benoit, Vader, the list goes on and on. Sting, they kept doing it even after WCW was long dead. Sting, first match in WWE, biggest match of all time, historical. Sting's finally coming to WWE. What do? Triple H beats him right out of the gate. And I also mentioned this on Twitter. The peak of his powers, when Triple H was still a wrestler and had the boss's ear, it was very notable that Triple H, long-running heel champion, often beat babyfaces in situations where people thought the babyface should win. Beating Booker T at WrestleMania 23 or 22, I think it was. That was one where everybody was like, "Where's that 19?" That might have been WrestleMania 19, whatever it was. That was one where Booker T was on fire and he'd been wronged repeatedly in the feud with Triple H, and everybody was like, this is the time. Triple H has to drop it and put Booker T over. What did he do? Pedigree. Hit him with his move. 1, 2, 3. Triple H stays champion, stays on top. So is that his mindset of how he presented himself? Is that playing into how he's presenting Roman Reigns and what he thinks, about who should win matches, who should go over? I don't know. At this point in time, I feel like I'm just rambling and kind of blabbering on and on. Overall, great WrestleMania. That last match did just kind of leave a sour taste in my mouth about the whole thing, though. So it's weird feeling to have enjoyed so much of it, but just to have that last little But I will say, to WWE's credit, it has been a long time since I've had any feeling like that about wrestling. It's been mostly just like watch the matches because they're entertaining, hope they're fun, hope they're good matches, don't really care who wins. So for the first time in a long time, WWE has made me care about who wins and loses their matches. So I guess in that regard, I do have to tip my hat to him and say, good job, WWE. I wasn't happy with the result, but you made me care for the first time in a very long time. Maybe since like Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30. That might have been the last time I genuinely cared about who actually was going to win a match in a big match like this. So they got me. I'm a mark. They got me. Great show. Like I said, top to bottom, night one was insane. Night two was solid, if not great. Excited to see where they're going forward because, you know, like Triple H said, the story continues. I'll watch Raw tonight. I'll see what all they've got up their sleeve. You know, this wasn't enough to turn me off and say I'm done with wrestling forever. But thanks for watching, or thanks for listening if you're listening to the podcast version of this, whatever platform you're enjoying this on or tolerating this on. Subscribe, make sure you have the notifications turned on so you get updated anytime new content comes out, because there's always going to be more flowing out of the channel. And I might do more of these where it's like a dual video podcast type thing. I don't know, because I feel like I did the ranking WrestleMania one, maybe because it was a little bit longer, it would have been easier to digest in audio form. This one's a little bit longer, so maybe a little bit easier to digest in audio form. I don't know, maybe some more Nashville SC coverage in podcast form. I don't know. The only way to find out is, you know, to subscribe to all the channels and everything and keep up to date on all that's going on in the world of Uncle Mad. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram while you're at it too. You know, I'm all over the place. You never know where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more in the future. Have a great day. Good night.